Welcome back, everybody. It's Zach here, bringing you guys another fantasy football video. This one, we're going to be going over some of the off-season and training camp's biggest storylines and telling you whether or not I think they're overhyped or if we're still overlooking them. So I'm going to cover 5 of what I believe to be the biggest and most fantasy-relevant storylines that we've heard about over the last couple of months. I'll give you my general take on it and how I think people should be reacting to the news that we've been getting. There's obviously been a lot of news and stuff over the last several weeks. I'm not going to touch on every single player that's made headlines. So if there is anybody that I don't mention here that you do want an opinion on, feel free to let me know in the comments. I'm happy to give you guys my opinion there. And hopefully you guys find this useful. It's really fun to, get all the snippets that we get from training camp and preseason. But I think often we find ourselves in situations where we're just so desperate for information that we almost overreact to what we see. But I also think that it's still really important to make sure that we take in all the information that's being given to us over the last couple of months and actually put it towards good information and good actionable draft advice as well. So hopefully you guys enjoy. Let's get into the first one here. The first storyline I want to highlight is going to be Dazon Stribling, who has arguably been the most hyped player across the league this offseason, and he's absolutely looked the part in the preseason. He's just been absolutely dominant on every single opportunity given to him through the first 2 weeks of the preseason. We'll see how involved he is in week 3. Honestly, the best thing that could happen would be maybe him potentially resting with the starters. And to be honest, the draft capital shouldn't make this that much of a surprise. He was the 33rd overall pick in the NFL draft. Basically makes him a first-round pick, second-round pick, and then he was the first pick of the second round. But this is a very highly drafted player that is clearly excelling in the role that the 49ers expected him to fulfill when they drafted him. The competition for targets here with Stribling pretty much all belongs in a retirement home. You've got George Kittle coming off of a torn Achilles. Mike Evans missed a lot of time last season with injury and is already dealing with a groin injury. Deebo Samuel probably washed. There are rumors that he might not even be running with the ones. Christian McCaffrey, he's getting older. You already have Ricky Pearsall out for the year. Dazon Stribling is super necessary to this offense, and I think we do have a lot of reason to be optimistic that the offense is just going to find a way to make it work. They dealt with a ton of injuries last season, and Shanahan just sort of found a way for this team to continue to be good on offense, and I think that makes it really compelling to draft Dazon Stribling based off of what we've seen so far. And the reality is that he's still the ADP the wide receiver 58 by ADP right now. His real-time ranking. So if you look at expert rankings that are only ranked by guys that have updated their rankings over the last 24 hours, that shows him as the wide receiver 43, which is still not all that high. And honestly, I'm starting to think that Dazon Stribling is probably going to be the most valuable pass catcher on the 49ers this season. Again, phenomenal player. There's no real competition for targets. I know Mike Evans is going to be a huge red zone threat. I'm just worried about how healthy he's going to be able to be over the course of the season. Deebo doesn't matter to me. Stribling is going to be a focal point of the offense here, and we've seen this team produce wide receiver ones before. We've seen Deebo be a wide receiver 1 for this team. We've seen Brandon Ayuk do it. This is going to be a really good offense, and if Stribling is as good as he looks, he's going to be really good for fantasy. So for me, I think he's actually still being overlooked. Despite all the hype, I think he's a player that we need to be paying more attention to, and if you need to reach on him in your draft, I highly recommend doing that. One of the next biggest storylines that we've dealt with this offseason is the Giants' backfield. The news just hasn't been super great for Cam Scatterbo. We saw last week Harbaugh came out and said that he doesn't think Scatterbo is 100% yet. We came into week 1 of the preseason with Scatterbo listed as a co-starter with Tyrone Tracy, and we heard a lot about how Tracy was going to factor in on third downs, 2-minute drill, and that's obviously not great because Scatterbo is a phenomenal pass catcher in his own right, and if we want him to be good for fantasy, we want to make sure that he's actually going to be a full playing time, full-time workhorse back. And it sounded like from the initial news that we were getting just was that the Giants were going to want to use him sort of sparingly in like a 50-50 timeshare with Tracy. And then since then, you had the signing of Najee Harris. A lot of people are worried about that. He's obviously got familiarity with Greg Roman coming over from Los Angeles last season. There's a lot of reason to be concerned that Cam might not be a featured back here in New York, but I think we need to take a closer look at that. So Tyrone Tracy kind of playing his way off the roster in this preseason. He's going to make the roster, but absolutely whiffed on a block that got Jackson Dart blown up in week 1 of the preseason game. That's a pretty big no-no. That's a big reason why they probably were at least looking at Najee Harris, just because he's so good in pass protection. Najee Harris, I just mentioned him. He's coming off a torn Achilles. He's never been an explosive player. I know he's got familiarity with Greg Roman, but at this stage in his career, Najee was never electric, and now you're losing even more explosiveness with the torn Achilles. There's just no way he's going to be super relevant for fantasy. And then Devin Singletary, he's nothing. It wouldn't shock me at all if Devin Singletary didn't even make this roster. So you put all that together, and I think that when rubber meets the road, the talent's going to win out here, and that Cam Scatterbo is probably going to have to find himself in a role where they can't keep this guy off the field. He's clearly the best running back in that backfield, and I'm not going to let a ancient off of a torn Achilles Najee Harris sway me. Tyrone Tracy, I think he's a decent pass catcher, but he's nowhere near what Scadabo is, and he's not playing well at all in the preseason. So as the running back 18 off the board, he's still being drafted behind several players I prefer him over, such as like Josh Jacobs. So I actually think that people are overreacting a little bit to the news we've gotten here. I think there's a chance that you'll get him with a slow start to the season again. Coming off of an injury, you play the Rams in week 2. You don't love that. So if you wanted to like sort of wait, say, hey, the news is bad, they ease him in for the first couple of weeks, has a bit of a down couple weeks. Don't be too concerned when that happens either, because weeks 3 through 6, you get Tennessee, Arizona, Washington, and New Orleans. This dude's going to eat there. I wouldn't be shocked at all if he's top 5 back over that 4-week stretch. And I think the downfall here is actually pretty overhyped. So I do still think that we're overhyping this situation. I think that Scadabo is still going to be a featured back in the offense. And, it might take a few weeks to get him up and running just because he is coming off that injury. But I would not overreact to the news we've been getting here. I think Scadabo is still a great draft pick where he's being taken. Next up, we've got Matthew Golden, who's gotten a decent amount of hype this offseason, and it seems incredibly clear that Matthew Golden is going to be on the field in 2 wide receiver sets. That's something that Jayden Reed seemingly can't do. He's just not a guy that they want to use when there's 2 wide receivers in the field. And you pair that with the fact that you've got Tucker Kraft coming off of a torn ACL, Christian Watson often injured throughout his career. There's a lot of opportunity here for Golden to be a featured part of this offense, and all the reports out of training camp are that he looks amazing. We saw him beat Patrick Surtain on a route in week 2 of the preseason. That certainly got the people excited on Twitter. And the thing is, I still don't really believe in the talent. If you go take a look at the list of wide receivers who didn't register a receiving touchdown as a rookie, it's really not exciting. It's like Laquan Treadwell and Kadarius Toney and Mike Williams being like the bull case is as good as things could get, really. And you look at that list, it's obviously not very exciting, and I totally understand why you'd be out on Matthew Golden as a talent after a super disappointing rookie season, but the reality is the ADP is not very high at all. I know the hype's been really, the hype train's been going for Matthew Golden, but it hasn't really impacted where he's being drafted. He's currently a wide receiver 51 by ADP. That's behind Jayden Reed, who I like Jayden Reed. I think Jayden Reed's actually a better player than Matthew Golden, but he's not going to be given the opportunity to be out there on 2 wide receiver sets. It's where Matthew Golden is. It's going to be an offense that we like, obviously. You've got the looming suspension for Josh Jacobs. They're probably going to have to throw the ball quite a bit, and if they do that, and if Matthew Golden is anything close to what he was drafted to be as a first-round talent, Golden could be an incredibly explosive and integral part of this Packers offense, and as the wide receiver 51, I think he's still being overlooked. So he's well worth his draft cost. Like I said, I don't believe in the talent necessarily, but I don't think you need to believe in the talent with where he's being drafted, because there's a chance you're wrong. There's a very real chance I'm wrong. He could be better than what I saw on the field last season. And if that's the case, this guy's going to be really good for fantasy with where he's being drafted. So I have no problem drafting him where he's being taken. Again, I don't believe in the talent, but the draft cost is still super low. I am more than happy to take a shot on Golden this season. Still overlooked. I can't seem to go a video without talking about Parker Washington, but Parker Washington is another one of the most hyped players this offseason, and there's all sorts of good reason to be excited about Parker Washington. He finished the season hot in 2025 and continues to impress in the 2026 offseason. His ADP is up to the wide receiver 30 here, so you're basically drafting him as a starter in like your flex or as the wide receiver 3, depending upon your league format. But he's clearly going to be the wide receiver 1 drafted by for the Jacksonville Jaguars here. You've got Brian Thomas Jr. at wide receiver 32. Jacoby Myers going as the wide receiver 50. Honestly, that might be a value. We should keep an eye on him. He just goes and produces everywhere. But Parker Washington was the wide receiver 11 over the back half of the last season. That means there's still a ton of room for him to perform over the course of an entire season at a much higher level than where he's being drafted. There's several players still being drafted ahead of him that I like less. That includes Mike Evans, Devontae Adams, Terry McLaurin, a couple other names. I think Parker Washington honestly could be going much closer to wide receiver like 24 than 30. And because of that, I think he's still probably overlooked despite the hype. I don't think people realize just how talented he is. The ADP is wide receiver 30 is completely reasonable. Despite all the hype, I think people are still overlooking him. Go draft Parker Washington. Now, the last player we're going to talk about here that's been super steamed up this offseason is going to be Jonathan Brooks, who when we started the offseason was basically an undrafted player, a guy going super late, and he's just sort of found his way higher and higher up draft boards, steamed up all the way to the running back 29 now. So you're drafting him as a running back 3, a mid to high tier running back 3 at that, and there's a lot of reason to be excited, right? You've got Chuba Hubbard, who has not played well over the last couple of seasons. Add on to the fact that Chuba Hubbard got banged up, maybe not even going to be ready for week 1. It's got people super excited for the opportunity here for Brooks to go out there and potentially just steal the job in this offense. But The problem for me is I just don't know what the upside is. You had Rico Dowdle basically take the job from Chuba last season, which is the bull case for Brooks, right? You're hoping he's good enough to do what Rico did last season. And he did finish as the running back 17. That's not bad, but it was all over the course of like 3 great games. He only had 3 games last season over 14.5 PPR points. So outside of those 3 games, he was never really a difference maker for you. And like I said, Chuba not going anywhere. I know he's not necessarily an extremely talented player, but he's good enough to take carries away from Jonathan Brooks. Coming off of 2 ACL tears, I just don't see a world where Jonathan Brooks actually gets a workhorse role either. Like, why would you give Brooks 20 touches a game when he's coming off of 2 torn ACLs? You certainly want to ease him into things. You want him to be a part-time player, a change of pace back, and you add in the fact that we know that the offense is going to be awful, right? Like, maybe the ceiling case is Bryce Young progresses a little bit. Tedero McMillan ends up being like a true alpha. They get super lucky on red zone efficiency, and Brooks ends up with like 8 touchdowns. That's like the best case scenario here. And there are a lot of guys he's just being drafted ahead of that have way more upside for me. You got J.K. Dobbins tied to a great Broncos offense. Jordan Mason could easily be a lead back for a much better offense in Minnesota. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, same thing, could be a lead back and should be a good offense for Washington. Kenny Gainwell, I think he's going to be like a 1A or 1B in Tampa Bay. Much better offense there. And, you know, that's just a few of the players being drafted behind him that I like quite a bit more. So with Brooks, you're drafting a player with next to no floor. He could be a 5-touch-a-week guy. He hasn't looked particularly efficient in the preseason either. He could certainly just not be very good anymore off of 2 major injuries. And the ceiling is very limited just by the offense he's a part of, and with Chuba there. You've also got Trevor Achane, who's going to, sneak in for a few passing downs here and there as well. So I'm going to call Jonathan Brooks overhyped right now. He's just getting too expensive for me. I think there are a lot of players being drafted around him that I prefer, and I just don't really see the upside case. So even though I think he's potentially going to be a really talented player, the situation limits him enough that I'm not super excited about him this season, and I just really haven't been drafting very much of him, which is unfortunate, but I'm just not doing it right now. That's going to do it for Overhyped or Overlooked. If you guys have any other offseason storylines that I didn't touch on here, feel free to let me know in the comments below. I'll be happy to give you guys my opinions on those players or storylines. Up next, we're going to cover some undrafted gems. So I'm going to look at players being drafted outside of the top 150 players in by ADP that I think still have a lot of upside and potentially be really fantasy relevant this season. So stay tuned for that video. That one will come out tomorrow, and we're just going to keep pumping out content. There's going to be a video a day up until we get to the start of the regular season. I'll be here the rest of the offseason, and then, of course, all throughout the regular season to help you guys win your leagues. So if you haven't already, make sure you guys subscribe to the channel. I keep saying it, but I can see that like 75% of you guys that watch these videos aren't subscribed to the channel. Kind of hurts my feelings. If you're going to watch the videos anyway, you might as well help me out. Help yourself out as well so you get notifications when new videos come out. You can click the notification bell. And yeah, I really appreciate you guys. Give the video a thumbs up if this video was helpful for you. And then, of course, again, like I said, any questions, comments, let me know in the comments below. It's one of my favorite things about doing this is interacting with you guys. So appreciate you all, and I'll catch you with the next one. Peace.